Welcome to the first episode of Bibliotherapy Sunday. So I chose Sundays for my bibliotherapy videos because a lot of people worship or meditate on Sundays, and for me, reading and books are my form of worship, religion, and meditation. So first I wanted to start off by apologizing if I don't look at the camera too much. I've got notes here because this topic is such an important topic. I don't want to miss anything, so just wanted to start off with that. So, the events at the U.S. Capitol building this past week, along with the senseless murders of people of color and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, has pushed me to start my bibliotherapy videos and restart my book blog, which will also be posted today, with books to help with racism and xenophobia. Let me be clear. The mob that broke into the Capitol building was a group of domestic terrorists, racists, and white supremacists. Today, I recommend books to help overcome racism and xenophobia, and like many bibliotherapy recommendations, they will only work if the reader opens their mind to it. It is the same idea as therapy, which is what bibliotherapy is: books and reading as therapy. You have to be open to it for the therapy part to start working. So let's first start with some definitions. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary provides a couple definitions for racism. I believe that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. The systematic oppression of a racial group to the social, economic, and political advantage of another. A political or social system founded on racism and designed to execute its principles. Basically, believing that you are better than another just because of the color of your skin. Now, a lot of people tend to use the terms racism and xenophobia interchangeably, and while they can be the same ideas, they aren't always. Xenophobia's definition, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is fear and hatred of strangers or foreigners or anything that is strange or foreign. So, xenophobia doesn't always deal with race, though it often does. In other words, it is often xenophobia that drives racism. You may be thinking that going over definitions is a bit basic, and you're right, it is. But it's also important to start at the base. It seems to me that a lot of people these days like to use these terms while not really knowing the actual meaning of the word or wanting to discuss the root of the word. So while it is basic, it is also necessary. A few brief notes before we move on to the book recommendations. Some people may read this blog or see this video and think that I have no place talking about racism as a white person. But to that I say, in order to rid the country and the world of racism, we need all parties and races to come together. I also use resources from various people of all colors and recommend books by authors of color. Another disclaimer, I have read some of these books but not all, and while I don't normally recommend books that I haven't read yet, I trust these sources and have heard glowing recommendations for all these books, so I feel comfortable sharing these. I also want to repeat the disclaimer that these will only help if you allow them to. The first thing that I'll say when it comes to book recommendations is to start with books written by others not like yourself. Own voices authors, authors of color, Indigenous authors, LGBTQ authors, authors with disabilities, are all who we're talking about here. Some of my favorite own voices authors include Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, Alice Walker, all legendary authors in their own right that you've hopefully, I pray, have heard of at least, if not read. Jason Reynolds, a great advocate for both own voices and libraries, and a great author for children's literature dealing with race. Colson Whitehead, Pulitzer winner, amazing fiction. And Jenny Zhang. After I finish Barack Obama's new memoir, A Promised Land, I'll be listening to the audiobook version of the classic Their Eyes Were Watching God by legendary Harlem Renaissance writer Zora Neale Hurston, which is also a recommendation by the novel Cure as a cure for divorce. So my fiction recommendations come from the book The Novel Cure, which I'll link below. You've heard me talk about it before. It's a book written by bibliotherapists with hundreds of recommendations for all different ailments, and that's my base for our Bibliotherapy Sundays. So their recommendations include, and I apologize in advance, I will probably say at least half of these names incorrectly, and I apologize in advance for that. So the recommendations include Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison for a cure for racism, and the 10 best novels to cure the xenophobic include Once Upon a River by Bonnie Jo Campbell, Sea Under Love by David Grossman, The Blind Owl by Sadegh, Hedayat, Waltenberg by Heidi Haddour, The Garlic Ballads by Moyan, Cities of Salt by Abdelrahman, Munif, Q&E by Vikas Swarup, Harp of Burma by Micho Takeyama, House of Day, House of Night by Olga Tokarczuk, Cutting for Stone by Ibraham Verghese. And there have also been some amazing nonfiction books that deal with these topics that have come out over the recent years. How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibraham X. Kendi, White Rage, The Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide by Carol Anderson, and this book gives excellent history of the racial divide in the US especially, and how we came to the problem that we have today. White Fragility, Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism by Robin DiAngelo. And while this book was written by a white woman, it is so important, especially for white people to read, because she breaks down the differences between prejudice and racism and discrimination, and it was so eye-opening to read. The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Anderson. The Warmth of Other Suns by The Epic Story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson. These are all really, really great recommendations, and I hope you pick them all up this year. But really what is most important is to open yourself to education. Educate yourself and read books by others that are not like you. Talk to people who are not like you. Tolerance leads to acceptance, which leads to growth, change, peace, and a better world for all of us. And so with that, I want to welcome you to add your favorite books by authors of color in the comments. Also let me know what ailments and issues you want me to tackle in our Bibliotherapy Sundays. Tune in next week for a new issue on Bibliotherapy Sundays, and don't forget to keep reading, like, comment, subscribe, and I love you all. Have a great day. Bye.